Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you have joined from. Welcome to the SQL Server Weight Types webinar series. This is a 4-part series, and today is the first one, part 1, June 20. And I was thinking about this for quite some time because a lot of questions come on weight types, and all of you might know that there are so many different weight types. We have so many questions popping up all the time. I thought, why not do a webinar series? Like 4 webinars, 5 webinars, to kind of answer all the questions from start to finish. And the idea was to cover the architecture, the framework, the concepts, and what are the common weight types, how to deal with them, and some techniques around how to benchmark and baseline. And before you benchmark and baseline, how to record the data, because some of those DMVs are volatile, they lose the data, etc. So here we are. We planned this along with my team, and we have set this up back to back each week. So we have the first one today, June 20. Part 2 is going to be on June 27. Part 3 will be on July 4, and part 4 will be on July 11. 4-part series. To answer your question, even before you ask it, yes, all the webinars are going to be recorded, and they will be available on sqlmaestros.com in the recorded webinars section. Okay, and as a tradition, which we always do is, yes, why not please put down which country are you from? It's always good to see people joining from all across the globe. So yeah, it'll be great to see some of you there. Oh yes, yeah, July 4th is a holiday in the US. I do understand. Unfortunately, we do all our webinars each Thursday, so we'll see what we can do about that. Okay, I want to call out all the country names out there. And yes, a lot of people from UK, US, India, Spain, New Zealand, Norway, Ukraine, wow, Brazil, and yeah, again, India, okay, Turkey, that's great. Germany, Israel, Earth. Okay, cool. Canada, Georgia. Okay, okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, friends. Thanks, SQL people, for joining this webinar. Okay, about to begin. I'm about to begin now. Please use the Q&A panel to ask questions. This is part 1, so this is going to be an introduction in case you are someone who's new to SQL Server, or you have been working with SQL Server for some time as a DBA, and you want to get started with performance tuning, then this is a perfect 1-hour content for you. If you're someone who is already experienced and you know a bit about weight types, then this is going to be a very good refresher. You might learn a few new things as well. If you're super experienced with weight types and performance tuning, this is going to serve as a refresher. And maybe you can join me in answering some questions if you are one of those guys. Okay. So with this, let's get started with SQL Server Weight Types Part 1. Ready to go, all of you? Yes, in the chat window, shall we get started? I have a few new slides. So I am hoping that you will love the illustration. I just wanted to really pass across the content to you. Friends, this content is from the SQL Server Performance Tuning Masterclass. This is one of those very popular masterclasses that I run sometimes, and the recordings of that is available on sqlmaestros.com. If you subscribe, you get lifetime access. I think in the emails that you had received, and you registered via those emails, those details are, you probably would have seen those links. So yeah, it's 40 hours of HD recording, and you get lifetime access, which means you can watch the content anytime, anywhere, as many times as you want. Okay. Now, yes, so I have taken the content from there and improvised a bit, added, polished a few things, added 1 or 2 new slides as well. And yes, I am presenting the content from there. Okay, so I can see a few messages out there that the camera window is partially outside the main window. I mean, why is and audio or video, is it all fine? I mean, this is the frame that you should be able to see. I can just see on my thing. Everything seems to be all good, friends. If some of you can confirm that. Audio is all good. You can see the PowerPoint slide. That's the first screen I have. Okay, some people are saying, yes, exit the full screen and you should be all okay. Okay, guys, figure that out in Zoom. Yeah. Okay, so let's begin. SQL Server Weight Types Part 1. Let's get started. First things first, when you send your query to SQL Server, either it is running or it is waiting. Now, this is a very simple way of understanding what's happening inside the database engine. There may be different states of that thread that is running the query or that session. Yes, there are different states, about 4, 5, or 6 of them, but we are not getting down deeper into those different states. So I will just present you 4 of them for the purpose of understanding, because the idea of part 1 here is to take a very simplistic approach to understand what's going on inside database engine and what are these weight types and weight stats all about. To the point stuff, no fluff, no extra discussions. Let's get straight on with your query, with your thread. First thing, it is running, right? And that is really what you and I want, that our query is running. The thread that is running the query is just running. It's doing its job. It might take a few seconds, and if the query is expensive, it might take longer, but whatever it is, it's doing the job. It is running. Okay, the next is it's waiting. Now, there comes a time when your query is running, it's waiting. What do you mean by waiting? A query needs resources, right? Resources like CPU, memory, IO. It might need resources related to data pages, index pages. There are just so many different things that your query might need. And sometimes when those resources are not available, then your query lands up waiting. Now, when it comes, and here is this term that we are using, waiting. And when it is waiting, SQL Server is recording that information. Okay, so we are going to come back to waiting again. Now, the other states, and you should be knowing that, is something like runnable. This is a state of your query. See, when I say query, please keep this in mind that query is more like a logical thing. It's really those threads that is running your query, right? So what states are they in? So they are running or waiting. And then there's another state called runnable, which means they have got everything that they want. They are ready to run, but probably the CPUs are still busy serving other threads. Maybe a logical CPU is not free. So your thread is waiting in a queue and is waiting for its turn on that CPU. That is the runnable state. This is the perfect example. These racers, these athletes are just ready to run. They're just waiting for that 3, 2, 1, go. So that's the runnable state. And the other state is sleeping, which means for the moment, the job is done, but the thread is still active. But right now, it has nothing to do. So it's like a sleeping state. Okay. There are different examples of like what sleeping could be. But just for the time being, understand that, okay, my thread is active. It's not really doing anything right now. So I'm sleeping. Now, our focus is waiting. Now, think about this. If a thread is waiting for a specific resource, let's say the thread is waiting for a page, a data page, because that thread wants to read data from that page. You know what data page is? Data page is the lowest storage unit where SQL Server will store its data, and a bunch of pages will make the table. Now, if a thread is waiting for that page, it might happen that another query comes in and wants to read the same data that's there in that page, which means it wants to access the same page. In that case, you will probably have another thread waiting. And then you might have another user who's, for whatever reason, wants to read the same table and the same data and the same data page. It might be an orders table, and a lot of salespeople are on the last day of the month, want to see what orders they have placed and what not. Everyone is accessing the orders table. This could be highly possible, which means that third user is also waiting, and then another one is waiting. So now what you see on the screen here is when you have so many different threads waiting for the same resource, a queue is formed, a queue. And this is what we This is the combined terminology that we use, which is waiting and queuing. So this is the concept inside SQL Server, that you might have one or more threads waiting for that one resource. So it's waiting and it's queuing. And it's very similar to our day-to-day metaphor, our day-to-day life. When you are waiting for the elevator to kind of go up 10th floor, 20 floors, you're waiting in front of the coffee machine for, the vending machine to vend the coffee for you. And you have people standing behind, they form a queue. And it's like first in, first out, isn't it? The one who is front in the front in the queue, that person is served first, and then you have the next one. SQL Server follows the same model, which is first in, first out. So this is a quick snapshot of what your query is doing. I can see some questions coming up in the Q&A panel. I'll take these up a little later. I just want to make sure that we cover all the content that I have planned for today. Okay, let's move forward. Now, waiting and queuing. So I'm now formally using this as the slide title here, waiting and queuing. So what is the query waiting for? That's the wait type. So what is the query waiting for? That is the wait type, which means, for example, you're waiting for the elevator, you're waiting for the coffee vending machine. I mean, to, like to get your turn on the coffee vending machine. You're waiting at the bus stop for the bus to come. See, these are different types of wait. Likewise, inside SQL Server, there are a lot of different, hundreds of different types of wait. Each wait type is termed as a wait class. And depending on the type of wait, SQL Server will register that information, or the thread will register for that wait class. Now, how long is that query waiting? That is what we term as wait stats, which is not really wait stats, but like wait time. Now, how many times is the query waiting for that specific wait? What was the duration? That is wait time. Then you have wait count, and then you have max wait time. On a given instance, how long did you wait in continuous? So these all together is what we call as wait statistics. There are not too many metrics, just about like 4 or 5, and we are going to see that in the dynamic management view. But then they're overwhelming because there's a lot of it, like high-flying numbers. So that is together, cumulative, all of that combined together is called as wait stats. Now, when you talk about wait statistics, there are two most important dynamic management views that you need to be aware of. I'm sure all of you know what DMVs are. Dynamic management views and dynamic management functions, they are combined together, called as dynamic management objects. They give you a lot of information about SQL Server database engine, about the internal state and health of SQL Server. There are more than 200 such DM objects. These two DMVs that you see on the screen are super critical for you. SysDM OS wait stats. This DMV will give you cumulative, historical, instance-wide information across all the sessions, all the databases and everything. So like one aggregated number. That is useful depending on what you're trying to do. So that's historical and analytical, so to say. Then there is another DMV called SysDMOS waiting tasks. And as the name says, waiting tasks, which means this is a real-time DMV. If you run this select statement with this DMV, it will show you what is going on right now. Real-time DMV. So like every time you run this, it will of course give you different information depending on what's going on with SQL Server at that very moment when you run the query. So you have two DMVs. One gives you real-time information. The other one gives you historical statistics. And I'm sure you can understand that both of them are important when you're heavily dependent on wait statistics to perform, performance tuning stuff, etc. Both of them are important. And your query is waiting in a queue. So I'm just trying to clear up all the terminologies here. So your wait type, wait stats, the DMVs, the queue. Now, how many types of wait do you have? Here are some numbers that I have kind of jotted down from different versions of SQL Server. So you have 2005, 8, R2, 2012. And what you can see is all the way from SQL Server 2005. So that was the time when this concept was introduced in SQL Server 2005. You had a very small number of waits. I mean, 200 is not very small, but still relatively very small compared to what we have right now. So you can see which with each version of SQL Server, the number of wait classes have only increased, which means you are able to troubleshoot in a more granular way. Given the current version of SQL Server like 19 or 2022, you have more than 1,000 different wait types. I know all of you might be thinking that, hey, Amit, um, I mean, as SQL Server developer, DBA, practitioner, architect, and whatever we are doing with SQL Server, do we really need to bother about all these different 1,000 wait types? Are we supposed to know what each wait type means? And are we going to record that, troubleshoot that, etc.? No, not really. I have not come across anyone who probably would know all the different wait types, all the preemptive and non-preemptive wait types. Um, yes, but you got to know about the common wait types that you will mostly see in your SQL Server environment. And if you're good with that, you are way ahead in troubleshooting performance issues. Okay, let's move forward. Now, SQL Server thread execution. So we talked about wait stats, wait type. Let's try to visualize this with this simple illustration. Credits for this goes to the Microsoft SQL Server wait types white paper, from where I have taken this illustration. The other illustrations that I've put on this on the previous slides and the slides that you're going to see next are original illustrations done by me. Okay. Okay. Anyway, from the last two slides, friends, how is it going? Are you following me? Are you understanding the content? All good? I know there are 3 questions waiting up there, but I will come to that in a moment. You know, when I start jumping to answer questions, I have seen audience gets a little distracted and I get very deep into answering questions. So let me just quickly see. Could you specify? I'll just quickly run through the questions. Could you specify the exact difference between runnable and waiting? Runnable means waiting for my turn on the CPU. It's just waiting for the CPU, which means I have everything. I'm ready to run, but the CPU is not free. That is runnable. And waiting means waiting for a resource. So I've just repeated that. Thank you. Okay. Next one, thread means query, which is waiting for resource. Okay. The question is not clear. Thread is the lowest unit of execution. That's the physical thing that is running your query. A query could run on a single thread, which is a single threaded execution, or your query can use multiple threads, which is where parallel execution comes into picture. Okay. That is also answered. I have an important query. Can I put that in front of the queue or elevate its priority? Can you prioritize your query? Well, not typically with SQL Server, but there's only way to prioritize something is using resource governor. So please explore resource governor. That's one way of how you can create workload pools and groups to prioritize some executions, but not otherwise. I mean, I don't know of any other way. Okay. Done. I've answered all the questions quickly. I'm doing better. Okay, questions, friends. Questions have to go into the Q&A panel, not in the chat window. I'm not going to look into the chat window for questions, please. Okay, let's get on to this slide, okay, because I want to complete the concepts first and at least show you one quick demo as to get all of us on the same page. Now, let's look at the SQL Server thread execution. What you see right now in front of you is, let's say, SPID 60 is running. So there is a virtual CPU. Let's consider that you have a server with a single CPU. I know nowadays you have like hundreds of CPUs on servers, but let's say just for the purpose of discussion, you have a server with one CPU and you have one thread running. So you can see SPID 60, which is your session ID 60, is running on that CPU. I'm sure all of us know that at any given point in time, a CPU can run only one thread. Okay. So SPID 60 is running. And that is why, if you see here, SPID 51, 64, 87, 52, and 93 are in the runnable queue, which means they are waiting for their turn on the CPU. That is the runnable state for those sessions, for those threads. But there are certain sessions like 73, 59, 56, and 55. These are the threads. These are queries, let's say, or sessions. I mean, just let's use these terms interchangeably, though they don't mean the same thing. But anyway, in simple layman terms, These queries, these sessions are waiting on some resources. 73 is waiting for LCKMS, which is one type of wait related to locks. Then you have another one, network IO. Then you have session 56 waiting on CX packet. Then you have session 55 waiting on resource semaphore, etc., etc. Now, those of you who are new to SQL Server and you're just hearing all this for the first time, this may really sound like Greek, Latin, and whatnot. CX packet, resource semaphore, network IO, heavy overloaded terms. When I was first looking into all of this, I was like, wow, this sounds scary. Don't worry about this. These are developers putting up some names of these wait types. They are sometimes very simple stuff, but big names. Okay. Anyway, these are different wait types that you are seeing. As we saw on the previous slide, there are many such wait types. So these sessions are waiting. Now, this is the state. Just visualize. You have the first CPU, the one CPU, SPID 60 is running. Some of them are waiting in the queue and others are waiting for resource. That's the current state. Now, after a few seconds, I'm just making it up, though all this happens very fast, it's not even a second. But let's say after some time, the state changes. Okay, let's see this. What changes? SPID 60 that was running, SPID 60 that was running, suddenly has to encounter a wait type. It's for some reason waiting for something to do with IO. And an IO completion wait type gets assigned to it. So it stops running because it's waiting for IO, something. We'll discuss what that something is later, but something it's waiting for. So it stops running and it goes into the waiter list. So what you can see here is waiter list. Sorry, I didn't call this out. This is your waiter list where, you have all the sessions that are waiting. So SPID 60 moves there. Now, if SPID 60 has left the CPU, which means now the CPU is available, right? If the CPU is available, you have the next one in the queue, which is 51, will get its turn, right? It's like first in, first out. That's the model, FIFO model. So 51 is right at the top of the queue. It gets a turn, and now 51 will start running. Okay, that's the state. So 51 moves up there, 60 moves up here. And while all this was going on, SPID 56, which was waiting for something, some resource, maybe that was CX packet, got access to that resource, which means its wait was complete. Now, which means it is ready to run because it has got everything that it wants. So it goes up and queues up in the runnable queue, and it goes at the end of the queue here. So now with all this happening, you have the final state as follows. So you can see at the bottom left there, SPID 51 is running. SPID 60 is waiting in the waited list, and 56 goes and is at the end of the queue in the runnable state. This is happening in all the virtual CPUs of your SQL Server hardware. I just gave this illustration with one CPU, but if your SQL Server box has 96 CPUs, this is constantly happening with all 96 CPUs, and it's happening very, very fast. It's happening at a millisecond level, on a millisecond level. Remember that. Okay. I hope this was clear. If you have questions, please use the Q&A panel. Okay, white paper link, I don't know. This was a very old white paper. So I will, in fact, tell you don't go to that white paper because that white paper was published way back in SQL in the year 2005, which is like about 20 years back from now. Okay. So just quick question. I have a quick query related to MDOP. Okay, I'm not discussing max DOP and all of that here. Please refrain from asking your production questions right now here. Okay. Okay, friends. So that's about SQL Server thread execution. And I just stuck the discussion. I kept the discussion limited to information related to wait stats. And this is what is happening. Now, waiting and queuing. Okay, I will give you another quick illustration now, and just to kind of, this may probably act as a summary, and you would probably see just a different way of understanding this. So you have the user, you have the server, you have all the wait types, some of those common wait types here like page IO, latch, CX packet. These are just the names of different wait types. The user is sending requests to SQL Server. You can see the query gets executed and then it's waiting. And when it's waiting for page IO latch, you have the wait getting encountered. And then in its lifetime, the query is waiting for some or the other wait type, right? And this is what we are going to see in part 1, 2, 3, and 4 across all this. I'm going to run a lot of different workloads, show you all the waits that it encounters from start to finish. So here in this example, as you can see, a query in its lifetime is encountering waits of different types at different times and count, which means a query can just encounter 1,000 instances of CX packet in a very short span of a few seconds. All that happens inside the database engine. And then when this just keeps going up, what you will see the numbers in wait stats. So what you see on the right are nothing but wait time. So you will see all these 4 digits, 5 digits, 6 digits, 7 digit numbers, which will be cumulative aggregated numbers across all the sessions, across the entire instance. Okay. So this is your wait type. These are your queues, for example, and your stats out there. Okay, now comes where can we see this information, right? The weight statistics and everything that we are talking about. You want to see all of that in action. Okay, so on your top left, I'm just trying to demonstrate that the database engine is constantly processing your queries. What you can see, requests are coming in and constantly the database engine is processing it. Then let's, and as I mentioned right in the very beginning, that SQL Server is recording a lot of information, what your query is waiting for. So let's understand what it is recording and where can you find that information. First things first, sysdm-os wait stats. We talked about this. This is a DMV that will give you cumulative, aggregated, instance-wide information, which means, friends, if your SQL Server is running for the last 5 years and someone has not cleared this DMV, when I say clearing the DMV, which means, friends, how many of you know that there are, I guess there are two DMVs at least, as what I can quickly remember. The data of that DMV you can clear using a statement called dbcc SQL perf, right? So there is a command, there's a here dbcc SQL perf. Using that, you can actually reset and you can clear out, set everything back to zeros for two DMVs, wait stats and latch stats. So what I was trying to say, if your SQL Server is running for the last 5 years and no one has run that command, which means DMOS wait stats DMV will give you the cumulative aggregated data for the last 5 years. Yes. So that is what it is, instance-wide information since the time SQL Server is running, the instance is running. Waiting task DMV is a real-time DMV, which means depending on when you run it, it will give you the current present information. That's why I've used that smoky GIF here. The smoky GIF here means that the data is volatile, real-time. It will just keep evaporating. You have another one, sysdm exec session waits. This DMV was introduced probably in SQL Server 2016, maybe SP1, SP2, I don't know, but this DMV will give you the wait stats information for a specific session. And again, it's volatile because if that session closes, that information is gone. Okay. And then some good stuff from Microsoft, which is you can also see wait stats in the execution plan now. Again, this thing is from SQL Server 2016 or 2017. When I use this like 2016, 2017, 2019, I tend to use the term like recent versions of SQL Server because so many customers of mine are still running SQL Server 2016 and 2017, though even though it looks like they are 8-year-old releases, but it's still very much active. So yeah, so in those recent versions, you have these new things like you can see wait stats for a given query in the execution plan in the properties window. This is wonderful stuff. You know why? Because otherwise earlier, let's say you run a query and it takes a long time to execute, and it's a slow running query, and you want to find out all the weight stats the query has encountered during its execution, you have to do a lot of different stuff to figure that out. Probably create an extended event session, capture the information, filter on the session ID, and whatnot. Was a bit cumbersome and tedious. Now, you run the query, let's say it ran for 30 seconds, and you just wait for it to complete. Once it's complete, you can go to the execution plan and go to the properties window by selecting the select operator, and you will see one node out there which will say weight stats, and you can actually see all the weight stats that it encountered. When I say all the weight stats, there might be a few outliers. We'll discuss that later. And then one very popular tool, which is extended events. I'm sure all of you know about that. Extended events will is of course a replacement to profiler, and you can use extended events to create sessions that can capture weight information. So there is an event out there called weight info. That's the event you can use. We use extended events and weight info very, very heavily when we are dealing with production boxes. So these are the different places from where you can get weight stats information. And of course, there is Query Store now, and maybe a couple of more things. With each release of SQL Server, there are a lot of improvements and enhancements and new stuff out there. But yeah, this is the gist of where you can get the weight stats information. Okay, so someone says, didn't find sysdm exec session weights in SQL Server 2019. Exec session weights, really? Okay, I will see that, because I think exec session weight stats. Okay, that's weight stats. Thank you. Okay, so it's a typo here. Why not go and fix that right away? This was with slide, friends. Okay. Okay, this is not there. Okay, I'll check that. So this is supposed to be weight stats. Okay, fair enough. We'll figure this out. Thank you for highlighting that. Okay, so what we will do now, okay, questions. Let's just quickly see if we have questions. Okay, question, if there are 96 CPUs, then 96 SQL threads will run. Of course, that's the whole idea of having more CPUs, so that more threads can run in parallel. Okay, we have another question. We have 2-core CPU. We'll get scheduler yield weight type. Scheduler yield weight type will cover. It's one of those weight types that really come right on the top, but then it's not much to worry about. We'll do that. Then, okay, Corey has a question, but as you see, different weight types, how do you keep from having wrong responses to the weight types that you see? Sometimes one weight type might not be relevant. Yeah, of course, Corey. So we are going to answer this in part 2, 3, and 4. This is going to come up quite a few times, so we will discuss that. Okay, done. Okay. So first, friends, I know you will have a lot of questions about weight types, what to worry about, what not to worry about. Just because weights are happening, do you worry? So we are going to discuss that definitely. But first, just let's get the framework out of our mind. Let's first understand conceptually what's going on. Then we will see what do we worry about and what we should not worry about. And what we have to worry about, how to diagnose that, right? How to troubleshoot, how to do that, all that performance tuning stuff. If you want to watch the remainder part of the webinar and all the remaining demos, you can subscribe to the webinar on sqlmaestros.com and get lifetime access to the recorded webinar. All you have to do is just go to sqlmaestros.com, click on the recorded webinar section and get access to all the webinar recordings. There are many of them. Some of these webinars are free and some of them are very nominally priced. So the ones that you're interested in, you can subscribe to them and get lifetime access. Now, because there are so many webinars, subscribing to each webinar might be a bit cumbersome. So we have another option, which is SQL Maestros membership. So the first link on SQL Maestros says join. If you click on that, it will bring you to SQL Maestros membership. Things are very simple. There are 2 membership levels. The first level is free, where you get access to all the free webinars and all our tutorials and demos, more than 200, 300 demos and tutorials. All you have to do is just become a free member. You're paying nothing and you get access to all of them. So you don't have to go and subscribe to each webinar individually. Just become a free member and then explore the free video lobby. So if you go to the video lobby here, there is something called as free content where you get access to all of that. But then all of us are interested in advanced content, isn't it? And that is where premium membership comes into play. So the webinars that are paid, and there are many advanced tutorials and demos. If you want access to all of them, you can become a premium member and pay a nominal price, which is annual membership. Once you do that, you can explore the premium video lobby. If you go to the premium video lobby from here, or just go to the video lobby and click on premium content, you can see all the paid webinars and all the advanced tutorials and demos and get access to all of them with your annual membership. Anyway, choice is yours. There's a lot of content on SQLmaestros.com, and you can also explore the YouTube membership level as well. So you have free content on YouTube channel, and you can also join and become a member of SQL Maestros on YouTube, where you can pay a monthly fee, get access to all the paid webinars and advanced content. So in summary, you can go to SQLmaestros.com and become a member, or you can become a member on YouTube also. Becoming a member on SQLmaestros.com turns out to be a little cost effective with the annual membership in comparison to YouTube monthly membership. But anyway, choice is yours, whichever platform you wish to use. Happy SQL.